This is the BBC News. Hello, I'm Jonathan Izard. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appealed for calm as protests over a controversial new citizenship law spread across the country. In a series of tweets, Mr Modi said that no Indian had anything to worry about, and he accused vested interest groups of stoking the unrest. Anbarasan Etirajan is in Delhi.
There have been protests across several universities in India from the north, south and the northeastern part. And these protests have caught this government completely unaware. What these protesters are saying is that the new citizenship law, which was passed by Parliament last week, is discriminatory. And there are some people who believe that if the law is passed, then states like Assam will be inundated with people from Bangladesh who are already living there, and that will change the demography and the new people will take over the land and jobs.
China's foreign ministry has said that the English Premier League football player Mesut Ozil had been deceived by fake news when he criticised Beijing's policy of detaining Muslims in the northwestern region of Xinjiang. Ozil, a Turkish-German Arsenal player, raised the issue on social media, leading Chinese state television to pull a live match featuring his team. Here's our Beijing correspondent, Stephen McDonnell.
Some will see this as them playing it down, rather than coming out and attacking Arsenal's star midfielder, saying, criticising directly what he said or abusing him, attacking him. They're saying he's just misled, that he's been infected by fake news. And to that end, they've invited him to visit Xinjiang. And Arsenal will be hoping that this goes away quickly because they don't want to be locked out or even sort of impacted in this very lucrative Chinese market.
The Chinese President Xi Jinping has expressed strong support for the Hong Kong police following 7 months of clashes between police and pro-democracy protesters. Mr Xi made the comments at a meeting with Hong Kong's leader Carrie Lam, who's visiting Beijing. The Chinese Premier Li Keqiang told Ms Lam that she must end what he described as the violence and chaos caused by the protests. In Britain, more than 100 newly elected Conservative MPs, many from northern England, have been arriving in London at the start of a busy week following Boris Johnson's emphatic election victory. Our assistant political editor Norman Smith says Mr Johnson will focus on representing the voters who switched to support his party.
The message is basically, we're going to do things differently. It is an entirely new sort of Tory party, in part because they just have so many un-Tory MPs. MPs representing northern working class communities who they've never had before. That changes the complexion of the Conservative Party at Westminster. But by instinct too, I think Mr Johnson sees himself as leading a very different sort of Conservative Party where there is going to be a much greater attempt to try and address the concerns of communities who frankly feel left behind.
Norman Smith reporting. World News from the BBC. Fresh talks have resumed on how to restore devolved government in Northern Ireland, almost 3 years since the last power-sharing administration collapsed. The British government's Minister for Northern Ireland is meeting political leaders separately before they hold round-table discussions later in the week. It will include the two main parties that fell out in early 2017, the Democratic Unionists, who favour remaining part of the United Kingdom, and Sinn Féin, which wants a united Ireland. The authorities in Rwanda are demolishing homes in the capital Kigali deemed to be at risk from what they describe as climate dangers. More than 40 people have been killed by heavy rainfall in Rwanda over the past 3 months. Our Africa editor Mary Harper reports.
Families are standing outside with their possessions, watching their homes being destroyed. They say they've received no offers of compensation, despite living in the area for decades and paying land taxes. The government says they will eventually be recompensed. Some are now living in classrooms, others with friends and relatives. The authorities say hundreds of houses built on or near wetlands have to be knocked down. This, they say, is to protect people from landslides, flooding and other dangers caused by unusually heavy rains.
Police in the German capital Berlin are trying to find out who opened the unmarked grave of former SS officer Reinhard Heydrich, a top Nazi killed by Czech partisans in 1942. An employee at the Invalids Cemetery in central Berlin found that the grave had been opened. Police say no bones were removed. Heydrich was a key organiser of Nazi Germany's mass murder of European Jews. Thieves in Britain have reportedly got away with jewellery worth an estimated $66 million after breaking into the home of the daughter of the former head of Formula One motor racing. Tamara Eccleston is said to be angry and shaken after the burglary in an exclusive area of central London. She's believed to have been on holiday at the time of the burglary. That's the latest. BBC World Service News.